this lesson, we'll be creating page layouts using cascading style sheets. I've got a finished version of the page in front of me here, and I'll just talk around it a little bit and then we'll create a new one from scratch. If you'll notice up in the CSS styles, I've got a number of styles that were created to set the layout to this, and you'll notice they all have a hashtag in front of them because all the styles are associated with an ID, and an ID always starts with a hashtag. Now these IDs are all attributed to various div tags on the web page. There are actually three distinct ones. There's the main one that holds everything called container, and this body area here is in a div tag called main content, and then over on the left I've got another div tag holding that content, and it's called sidebar. And if I was to click on sidebar, for example, I can double click it here and we go over to the box category. You can see that we've got various widths set and other features, which we'll talk about shortly when we create the page. Now you'll also notice that there are some compound selectors in this list as well. That is to say, it's a combination of not only the ID but any specific tag contained within that div tag. So for example, sidebar space P means any paragraph inside of the div tag called sidebar will be affected by these styles. So you see I have a number of them, some for the H2 tag, some for the main content area, and these ones down here with the A hyphen link, or rather A colon link, are for the hypertext links, and the A hover is for the rollover of the hypertext link. So we can affect color and style and font and so on. Now let's just take a look at this in the browser. I'll just preview it in Firefox here. And one of the main features in this that I want to bring across today is how to center the content on a web page when the browser is resized. As you can see here, the area outlined in black does recenter itself when I resize the browser. So I'm going to show you that little trick as well in creating a page completely laid out using div tags. Let me just go back to Dreamweaver here for a second, and let me do something very dramatic right now. I'm going to detach the style sheet from the page and just let you see what it looks like when there's no style attached to it. I'm just going to go up to style sheet here and delete it, and there you can see what the page looks like without any styles attached. You notice this section up here is actually in the sidebar, and this is the main content. Now I can just reattach that. I actually didn't delete it, I actually just unattached it from the page. And of course we can attach a style by clicking on the little chain link icon down here, and I can browse for file. I can see it's right there, stylesheet.css. Click open, click OK, and magically everything falls back into place. At this point, we'll start by creating the new web page from scratch. Alright, so let me close this page here. And we'll just start a brand new page. Create new HTML. And right away, I'm going to save this into my site root. I'm going to go File, Save As, and we'll call this one manual.html. Just make sure I spell that correctly, manual.html. And if you're not sure, just click Site Root. Again, this is assuming you've already set up the site using the content of the folder that you should have downloaded. So I click Save, and I will see it appear in my site panel down here. These other files that were included is where we're going to retrieve our content when it comes time. So just to formalize this, I'll give it a title, manual, get my tab key. I'll just start by clicking my insertion point into the design side. I'm using split view right now, and I had set up my workspace layout to classic mode. That way I get the CSS styles and I get the files panel as well. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is establish our first style, which will be the container which will hold all the content on this page. And in doing so, I will generate a brand new external style sheet at the same time. So let's go over to our styles panel and just click on the new CSS Rule button. And we're going to use the ID selector type because these will all be unique to each div tag that they'll be attached to. So the first one is the main one, which will be the container. So we'll call it container. And I will save that in an external style sheet, new style sheet file. So I'll click OK to start this. And I will make sure that that style sheet goes in my site root. And I'll just call it style sheet.css and click save. Alright, so this one has to do with the container primarily. So I'm going to go down to the box category. And we're going to set the width to 750 pixels. Then I'm going to create the feature which allows that container, that div tag, to constantly center itself on the page according to the browser's window size. And that's done in the margin category. So we're going to turn off same for all. Basically the trick here is we set the top and the bottom to 0. And the right and the left, we type in the word auto for automatic. And believe it or not, that's what will maintain the centering of that div tag. So I just hit my tab key to enter that. And I'm just going to put a border around this just so that it will be more visible as a demonstration. So let me go over to category border. And I'll just choose solid. And we'll make it 3 pixels and we'll just choose black. Okay, so now I can click OK. And I've created the style. I've opened up my style sheet here. I've created the style, which is actually an ID selector type. Now I actually need to create the div tag and attach this ID to it, and then it'll adopt the properties. So let's go up to Insert, Layout Objects, Div Tag, and under ID I can pull down and I can see the existing available IDs, container, and I click OK. And you can see it appeared on the page and it came with some placeholder text. Now I'm going to replace that placeholder text shortly, but first I'm going to actually embed or nest another div tag inside of this, because this is just the outer container. So I want to actually separate the content within it. So I'll put a div tag within it. So I will delete this at this point, but keep my insertion point inside, and I'll create the second container, which will be called main content. So I'll start by creating the style. ID, this time I'll call it main content, and I'll just capitalize the C, camel case, save it in that external style sheet, and click OK. Now this one, I'm going to go to the box category again, and I'm going to push it out from the left by using the margins once again, which will allow for what I will eventually put in on the left, which will be the sidebar. So under the left margin, I'm going to push it out 175 pixels. So I'll type in 175 under the left margin. And I'm just going to pad it a little bit. I'll put in a 2 pixel padding. And I think we're good for the main content with respect to our settings here. So I'll click OK once again. With my insertion point still inside of the div tag called container, I will create a new div tag. So Insert, Layout Objects, Div Tag. And again, I'll search for my available IDs, main content, click OK. And it might be a little hard to see, but there's a dotted line over on the left here, because remember I pushed it out 175 pixels, and it's relative to the container that it's inside of. So it's pushing it out from this line 175. And if I scroll over here, you can see it goes to the end. So I will replace this with the content of the file called main content. So let me open up that file that's been provided, main content. Just click inside of here, go select all, copy it, go back to my original file, and again with that content highlighted, I will paste it, which replaces it. And I'm just going to shrink my view here so you can see the whole page, or more of the page. And there we are so far. I notice my style sheet needs to be saved as well as my file, so I will go save all. And we've begun the process of actually creating a layout using div tags and styles attached using the IDs. So we can preview this right now and see what we have so far. So again, if I slide this out, my container stays 750 pixels wide, and it does recenter itself automatically. Okay, let's go back to Dreamweaver. Now we're ready to put in the sidebar. Now this sidebar I also want to nest inside of the container, and I don't think I can actually click inside my design view with my cursor to get the proper spot for that. If I click in here, it always wants to go in front of that B in front of bathtub. Let me just grab more of the code view over here for a second. The place I need to put it is just inside of the first div tag called container. So I can see it up here. So I'm just going to put my insertion key right after that. So I'm putting it basically before the main content inside of that nesting. So just make sure you click inside of your code view. If you can't see it, go to split view or code view. Click just after that tag for your insertion point. Now I'm going to create the style over here for sidebar, and then we'll attach it. So down here, new CSS rule. I'll call it sidebar. Keep it in that same external style sheet. Click OK. And go down to my box category. Now if you recall, we left a margin of 175 pixels on the left of the main content, which means anything smaller than that will fit into that area. So I'm going to go into the width and create 170 pixels for the width. Now I need to force the content of the sidebar to the left side of the page. And the way we force content to one side or the other is by using the float feature, which I have over here. And there are three options. You can float it left, which means force it to the left, or to the right, or leave it alone. So I'm going to force the content of sidebar to the left. So I click float left. So the content will be inside of a box 170 pixels wide, and it will be forced to the left. Now, just to make the type a little more readable, I'm going to put a padding of 4 all around the content. And that's really all I want to do for the sidebar, which will ultimately be attached to the div tag. So I click OK for that. And now I will create the new div tag. Insert, layout objects, div tag. And remember that my insertion point is just inside of the div tag for the container ID. Go down to my available IDs, choose sidebar, click OK, and there it appears. Now I'm going to replace this content with the content of the file called sidebar content. So I'm going to open that now, and I'll just click inside of here, select all, copy, go back to my file, highlight that placeholder content, and just paste over top of it. There we go. Now, if I want to make some fine-tuning adjustments to these div tags, I can always go in and double-click and go make a change anytime I want. Let's just save all right now. I can see the style sheet needs to be saved, as well as the file. Save all. Now at this point, I'd like to go into these div tags and actually style some of the tags unique to those div tags. So I'm just going to actually drag this code view over a bit more here. And I've got an H1 tag up here, and H2 tags, and some paragraph tags in this div tag called the main content area. So I only want to affect those tags in that area with the specific style. So I'm going to do what's called a Compound Selector, which uses the div tag as a reference, and then it also references the specific tag within that div tag. So let me start by creating a new style. And I will go to Compound. And basically the way it works is these hashtags represent div tags, and it shows the nesting with the order. So container is at the top level, then underneath that is a div tag called main content, which is contained inside of there, and then currently highlighted was the paragraph tag. Now I want to affect the H1 tag, so I'm just going to replace that with an H1, and it is optional in this case to keep the main container involved and not specify it. And if I was to do that, if I had another div tag with a nested container called main content, it would be affected by this same compound selector. So I'm going to go number sign or hashtag main content space H1 to affect the H1 tags inside of the main content, and I click OK. Now I'm just going to set the font to Verdana, and we'll set the size to 32 pixels. Actually, it's not on the list, so I'll type it in, 32 pixels, and I'll give it a dark blue color. I'll just say 006 here, and we click OK. And you can see it automatically adopted that style because it's a tag style. So I'm going to do the same thing for the H2 tag as well as the paragraph tag, and then ultimately the hypertext link tag as well as the rollover feature for that. So one way to get down to it quickly is to click inside of the area surrounded by that tag, in this case the H2 tag, which is inside of div main content, which is inside a div container. Create a new style, and you can see that hierarchy showing up automatically in my selector name when I insert my cursor at that spot. Now again, I'm going to get rid of container in this case because I don't want to be that specific. So anything inside of a div tag called main content with an H2 tag will be affected by this style. Click OK. And this one I will also choose Verdana. I'll make the font size, let's see, 24. And I'll give it a green color. And we'll just say .030, a dark green. Click OK. And my H2 tags automatically take on that style. The next thing I'll address is the paragraph. So I'll click inside of one of these paragraphs, create a new style. Again, make it less specific, so I'll remove the container reference. And this is the tag that I want to apply. So main content space P, click OK. Again, I will use Verdana. The font size will be 12 pixels. And I will use a medium gray for this. And we'll go for the 666. and click OK. Now I've done a fair amount of work here, so I'm going to do a save all. Alright, now I can continue, and I will continue with the link. This is a little bit different, and I'm going to type it out, so I'm going to create a new rule again. Main content. I'll take out that reference to a link inside of a paragraph and be less specific, meaning all links inside of main content. But I want to be specific to the default color, so I have to put in a colon link. You can see them in the pull down menu, but if I use these, then it overwrites what's already typed in. But you can see here we've got link, visited, hover, and active. Today we're only going to use two, which are the link and the hover. So for the default color, it's a colon link. So any link inside of main content will take on these properties. Click OK. And we'll choose Verdana. And we'll make it 12 pixels. I'll create an underline text decoration. And I'll create a dark red for my color. Number 900. And click OK. And you can see it automatically took on those properties. Again, I will do a save all. Now I'm going to affect what color this changes to when we hover over it or do a mouse over or a roll over. So it's virtually the same as this, except it uses the colon hover. So again, new. Make it less specific. Make it apply to all links in the main content area. A colon hover, all lowercase. Click OK. And again, I'll choose Verdana. 12 pixels. I'll make the font weight bold. And we'll choose a green color. 090. And click OK. I'll do a save all, and I'll actually test this. So preview in browser. And there you can see my styles, and if I do the roll over here, you can see it changes to the underline. Actually, I'm going to remove that underline shortly, but it changes to the green, to the bold font, and you can see that dramatic difference. So let me go back to Dreamweaver and update that underline feature. And actually click none. Because it had the underline as a text decoration on the default, it stayed. So I'm actually going to force it off here by clicking none and apply. And I will have to do a save all. And we'll try that again. There you go. You can see it now, it lost that underline. And again, if I stretch or shrink the browser, it does center. So the last part is to decorate some of these tags over here in the sidebar. So I'll start at the top with this H2 tag, and then I'll go down and do the paragraph tag, and then we'll finish off by addressing the hypertext links. So new CSS rule. Again, I'll just make it specific to the sidebar. And it is the H2 tag that I want. And I do want to save it in that external style sheet. Click OK. And I just want to make it Verdana and 16 pixels. Click OK. And now we'll address the paragraph. New CSS rule. Again, I'll just make it specific to the sidebar. Having clicked in it, it brought up that tag into my selector name window. So it's the paragraphs. Click OK. And this one I'll set to Verdana. We'll make this one 10 pixels. And I'll set it to a very light gray. And I think we'll go with the 99 and click OK. And I'll just do a save all at this point. And we'll round it off here by addressing the links. So I can click inside of a link here. Create a new rule. And just make it less specific. Once again, I just want it to be all links inside of the sidebar. So we'll take out the reference to the list. Sidebar space A. But I want to address the default color. So I need to actually change this and add a colon link. Then I click OK. And again, the font will be Verdana. We'll make the font size 11 pixels. I'll decorate it with an underline, and we'll use the dark red, number 900. And click OK. And you see that instantly take on those properties. Again, I'll do a save all. Got one more to do, which is the hover state of these links inside of the sidebar. So I can click inside of there again, create a new CSS rule, just make it specific to the sidebar, remove the reference to the list, and this time it'll be colon hover, which addresses the rollover. So A colon hover, click OK, and we'll make this Verdana 11, actually need to type that in, 11 pixels. I'll take off the text decoration, so I'll click None, which means the underline will not appear on the rollover. And we'll change the color to a green, and we'll go with the 090 and click OK. Now you don't see that manifest itself until you test it in the browser, so I'll do a save all and preview in browser. And we do a rollover, and you can see it turns green and it loses its underline, and all the other styles have taken effect. And again, if I resize my window, it does center itself. So this is your assignment for today, is to create this layout and do some compound selector styles to style the specific tags inside of each of the separate div tags.